Welcome to Mission 360, where we connect you to the frontline missionaries.
Today on Mission 360, you'll get a chance to visit the places you have been reading about. How cool is that? I've picked out my story for the day. Have you chosen one?
Yes, I really like that one with the unusual little church. Can we visit that place first?
Sure, let's watch it.
This is another joyful Sabbath at the Word of Truth Seventh-day Adventist Church. The church is so packed that the Sabbath school study groups meet outside the building and across the street on the parking lots of neighboring businesses. Each week, the members of Word of Truth come eager to study the Bible, and they learn it well so they can teach others. Even the young are well versed in the Scriptures.
The priest washes his hands. He goes through the 4 pillars. He goes to the holy place. On his left is the candlestick. On his right is the table of shewbread. In front of him is the altar of incense. In front of the altar of incense is the veil. He sprinkles the blood on the veil and in the altar of incense with a hyssop.
The sanctuary is just one of the important themes taught here at the church. Every Sabbath, Pastor J.J. Ndlazi gives Bible studies to former members of this very congregation. Pastor J.J. founded Word of Truth, and he has pastored here for years, but only recently as a Seventh-day Adventist. Like their pastor, many of the members have also attended this church for years, but only recently as Seventh-day Adventists. Not long ago, the sign in this church posted Sunday worship times, but now the church vibrantly worships the God of creation. A short time ago, Sonia approached Pastor J.J. with a question about the Sabbath. She encouraged Pastor J.J. to study this subject with a global mission pioneer working in the area. J.J. quickly became convinced that the 4th commandment still holds true, as do the remaining 9. And at the cost of losing his job as their pastor, he presented the 4th commandment to his members. Some of the members left, but many of the members responded positively.
But what I realized in the Adventist church, the truth is put plainly, and it is from the individual to take it or leave it. When it is put clearly, you really feel, even from your heart, that, well, this is God speaking to you.
There are those people who stood aside with me just to encourage, saying, no, we think it is a good message, it's right because it's biblically. So we agreed as a church to change from worshiping from Sunday to Sabbath.
The next worship service was held on Saturday. The transition was not easy, but Pastor J.J. worked through the challenges, and with God's blessing, members are still coming back to the Word of Truth Seventh-day Adventist Church. Today, J.J. is a global mission pioneer working at the church he founded. This congregation is growing rapidly. Please pray for them as they reach others for Jesus. Pray that this congregation receives the Holy Spirit and that they will find a new place to worship with more room for their growing congregation. And thank you for your support of mission.
Wow, it's an amazing story. It's hard to believe someone would do that for their belief.
Yes, he really is a man of God. Let's hear about his story from Lori Falvo. She went to the Word of Truth Church and visited Pastor J.J.
Laurie, thanks for joining us today. I hold in my hand a magazine called Mission 360, which of course matches the name of this program. And you're one of the managing editors, and I notice in this issue there is a story about the Little Unusual Church. Now, you visited the Little Unusual Church. Tell me about it.
That story is one of my favorite. It's a global mission story. It took place recently in Johannesburg, South Africa, and it's about Pastor Ndlozi and his Christian congregation. One day, one of Pastor Ndlozi's church members went to a flea market where she met a global mission pioneer couple that were giving away Bibles.
Okay, before you continue, what's a global mission pioneer?
Global mission pioneers are church workers that raise up new groups of believers. They'll go to an area that is either unreached or an unreached people group where the church is struggling, and they raise up a new group of believers there.
Okay, and these are not trained pastors, these are lay people who work among their own people.
Right.
Excellent. Sorry to interrupt. So they went to the market.
Yes, where she met a global mission pioneer couple that were giving away Bibles, and she started chatting with them and found herself working in the booth with them. And as they talked, she learned that they observed the seventh-day Sabbath. And she was intrigued by what she was learning, and she wanted Pastor Ndlosi, her pastor, to hear it as well. So the pioneer couple invited him over for dinner, and they talked about the Sabbath, and he expressed kindly, you know, this is great, but I think the Sabbath was done away with at the cross. But later when he went home, he couldn't get some of their questions out of his mind. So eventually he ended up studying the Bible with him. And he was convinced that he should begin to keep the seventh-day Sabbath, but there were a lot of concerns that he had. One was how his relatives would respond. Another was, what was he going to do for a job? You know,
Yes.
if he converted, he wouldn't be able to pastor the church anymore. And then there was his wife, Selena. The two of them had started this church together and been working there for years. And so his decision would be not only abandoning the church that he was part of, but all the members there as well. So he prayed that God would work upon Selena's heart. And when he first told Selena, she told me, she said, I thought he was absolutely crazy that he'd lost his mind. Everything was going so well in our lives here. He had this good paying job, and he was going to give it all up to join some church that didn't even have a full-time position for him as a pastor. But then Selena had a dream, and she dreamt that text in the Bible that says, where Jesus says that he is Lord also of the Sabbath. And that really impressed her, and she said from that point on, they were united in observing the Sabbath together. So Pastor Ndlosi got baptized, and he told his employer, and he gave him an ultimatum. He said, you can either quit or I'm going to fire you. So Pastor Ndlosi says, okay, I resign. But he had a plan. Before he quit, he was determined to present the Sabbath message to his congregation and to let them decide for themselves what they wanted to do about the issue. But there was a problem. The global mission pioneer that had helped convert him on the Sabbath message did not speak the language that his church members spoke.
Okay.
But they knew somebody who did. Another global mission pioneer couple, Elder and Mrs. Sabanda. And they came and they presented the Sabbath message. And as the members heard it, they listened intently. And they were so intrigued, they said, we want you to come back the very next Sunday morning. So he did. And after that Sunday, one of the church members stood up in the middle of the service, and he looked at Ndlosi straight in the eye, and he said, Pastor, when are we going to start observing the seventh-day Sabbath?
Wow.
And Pastor Ndlosi stood slowly to his feet, and he looked at his congregation, and he said, my wife and I have been observing the Bible Sabbath, but we wanted to know what you wanted to do. And the member said back, well, now we are waiting on you, Pastor. So that very day, it wasn't a unanimous decision, but that very day, there were enough people that wanted to change that they became a Seventh-day Adventist congregation. And Pastor Ndlosi put a sign on the door that said the next services held in that church would be on Saturday.
What a big change.
Yeah, it's very exciting. He invited Elder Sabanda to do evangelistic meetings there. At the end of the meetings, 23 people were baptized, including Pastor Ndlosi's wife, Selena. And here's the really cool part about the story. Pastor Ndlosi and his wife also have become global mission pioneers.
Wow.
And they are so passionate about reaching their community. They hold evangelistic meetings. Some of their former members are now slowly trickling back in and joining the church. And the community is, members are being baptized from the community. And so here you have a global mission pioneer reaching out to Pastor Ndlosi. And then another global mission pioneer couple reaches out to the congregation. And then Pastor Ndlosi and his wife become global mission pioneers. They reach out to former church members and the community. And the church just keeps growing and growing.
So did you worship in the church?
I did. A very enthusiastic, warm bunch, and it's just full. It's busting at the seams. So they are looking for a new church home, a new building to accommodate their growth.
Now, you personally met the pioneers and the pastor.
Yeah.
Just quickly describe what sort of people they're like.
Very, very warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very engaging, very passionate about their work. it's just a family. When you go to the church, it's just a family, and they just include you right in there with them.
And I'm interested that it's husband and wife teams that are working as pioneers.
Yeah.
When Christ sent out the apostles, he sent them out in teams of 2 for a good reason.
Right.
Yeah. So here's another question for you. Whenever I meet a pioneer, I have a certain reaction. I want to know, how do you feel when you meet a global mission pioneer?
I've met quite a few of them now, and to tell you the truth, I'm always humbled.
That's a word I always use.
Because these people are so dedicated, and they love, I mean, they will just sit there. I've had them sit there with tears in their eyes, telling me how much they love people.
Yeah.
And some of them from their early years have had a passion to work for God, and this is how they have come to express it. And
yeah.
boy, if we all loved people like that.
Exactly. That's the exact word I use, Laurie, that I feel humbled because I see their sacrifice. I mean, they're living on a very basic stipend, a living wage, but they always have wonderful stories of how God's leading. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. Great story.
I hope you have been inspired by this amazing story. We often rejoice for the conversion of one individual. Now, imagine how heaven rejoices over an entire church.
If you want to read more fascinating stories like this one, simply visit mission360mag.org or call us to receive your free copy. The phone number is 1-877-424-7457. Again, 1-877-424-7457.
After the break, we'll watch the story that you have chosen. Welcome back to Mission 360. Today, we are bringing stories to life. We are visiting some of the places you have read about on our Mission 360 magazines.
If you don't have one yet, visit www.mission360mag.org. It's free. Or call us at 1-877-424-7457. We'll be happy to share a copy with you.
Now, let's visit the country of Zambia and see the light through the work of Janie, a missionary eye doctor in Lusaka.
Meet Janie and Paul Yu, a missionary couple working in Lusaka, the capital of Zambia. Originally from the United States, Janie is an eye doctor and Paul a dentist. Here in Zambia, Paul and Janie diligently manage and operate an eye hospital and dental clinic. In a country of 14 million people with only 22 ophthalmologists, Janie bears a lot of responsibility. The Lusaka Eye Hospital is in a prime location for the needy as well as the affluent. Patients here opt among a variety of services, from getting new glasses to eye exams, laser treatment, cataract surgery, and even corneal transplants. About 100 patients are cared for on a daily basis, totaling more than 20,000 visits per year. Janie not only helps patients to see physical light, but also the light of the world as she shares Jesus' love and dependence upon God. She begins each procedure with prayer and relies on God for the best outcome.
Straight.
Paul works in the Adventist dental clinic right next door. Dental work in Zambia is sought after by the wealthy who can afford these treatments. Patients at the Lusaka Adventist Dental Services come from a select group of society, such as businessmen, government officials, and ministers. This presents a unique opportunity for Paul to mingle with important leaders. As he works on their teeth, there is an opportunity to talk about life and hope.
They do come here seeking care, the proper care, just because of the reputation that we have as a church. So there's tremendous trust that is given to us, and with that trust comes our responsibility and obligation to carry on with that and provide the best service possible.
Both Janie and Paul strive for excellence in service. They choose to work as missionaries in a place far from home. They long for the opportunity to impact others in a positive way. Every month, Janie and her husband travel into the community to host eye camps. These outreach events bring eye treatment to rural areas and district hospitals. People with no access to eye doctors get the attention and care that they desperately need.
I think eye camps and outreach events are the highlight of my work here in Zambia. When you encounter these 70-year-old men who are completely blind, and you work on them, and after a 20-minute surgery they can see again. The next day you take off their patch and they can see. I mean, it's just, they didn't have the means to pay for it, but somehow through us we were able to help them.
These lives, touched by an Adventist center of influence, are given a new purpose. The ability to see empowers them to do simple tasks they could not before. Now they can work, help their families and themselves. After these visits, the clinic chaplain follows up with individuals interested in learning more about Jesus. Although Janie and Paul won't always hear about the fruits of their labor, lives have been changed because of their selfless effort.
We are working to establish God's work, and there's tremendous challenge with that. Yet, we feel completely fulfilled in knowing that it's not for our own personal gain. It's truly to establish the work that it may bring glory to God and bring many to His kingdom.
Please pray for Janie and Paul Yu, and visit AdventistMission.org to learn more about mission work around the globe.
While in Zambia, we had a chance to ask Janie and her husband Paul about the work they do as missionaries.
You will be interested to hear firsthand what they had to say. Let's hear it in their own words.
We're inter-division employees working through the GC, stationed out in the country of Zambia. Lusaka is the capital, and we're both here. I'm providing dental services to the community at large here, and my wife is an ophthalmologist, and I'll let her explain what she's doing out here.
So yeah, we are medical missionaries through the General Conference, as he's mentioned. And as an ophthalmologist, I run the Lusaka Eye Hospital. I'm the medical director there, and I have multiple duties, one being administrative and the other being a physician providing eye care, doing the whole range of ophthalmic surgeries, lasers, as well as consultations, and overseeing our optometry department.
You know, both Janie and I, we've done quite a bit of mission trips, mainly short-term mission trips, could be a week or a couple weeks throughout different parts of the world. So we thought this was, something that we would just kind of slide right into. Obviously, we were kind of surprised that it was completely different than what we had expected. We knew it would be challenging, we knew it would be different. However, when we got here, we realized that it was not like your typical short-term trips where you just go and do good and just return home feeling good. We were assigned to these two institutions, and we had to carry the institutions financially. We had to make sure that payroll is met. We have fixed expenses. These were things that really we didn't expect to do. We didn't know we had to be administrators and to run the institution itself. We mainly thought we would carry on providing service and do good and feel good about it and help bring hope and healing to those we serve. But so it was quite a different experience, and we've grown a lot, and we are at a better place after almost 2 years now.
And I must say that both institutions were struggling financially when we did arrive, and so it was just a matter of doing a bit of research, trying to figure out what went wrong and what we can do to help our health institutions out in the mission field survive and thrive. And although we're not quite there yet, I think we're on track to really helping these institutions get back on their feet so that they can really be a prominent healthcare institution in the country, and people can look to it and say, yes, that is a Seventh-day Adventist institution, and our church members can be proud of it, and it can be a witness to those who don't know anything about our church.
Why come and be a missionary? Wouldn't it be easier to be home?
I mean, you're perfectly right. I mean, that would be the easy thing to do. Stay home and live your cookie cutter life of, your house, white picket fence, and 4-car garage, whatnot. But in our case, we independently had a desire to serve and become missionaries before we started our respective programs, before we even met. So it was very special that we had an opportunity through Loma Linda where they had a special program called Deferred Missions Appointees, and we signed up for that. And that kind of allowed us, or that gave us an opportunity to actually follow through with our, I guess, childlike dream of one day becoming a missionary. Because before we started on this path, we were a little younger, and our dreams and goals may have been very naive and very childlike to many, but that was what truly motivated us into our respective healthcare professions. And at the end, we wanted to stay true to that deep desire to serve. And it was kind of a long journey to finish our respective programs, but once we were done, we still had that in our hearts. We stayed focused. We wanted to do what we committed to doing, and we wanted to follow through with that. We believed that it was a covenant between God and us, and we wanted to stay true to that and follow through. And I think that was one of the best decisions we've made. We feel like the life that we're living is amazing. It's very raw, organic. You can't make up some of the stuff that we experience. And I think with time we will know that we made the right decision, and it's amazing.
For me, I wanted to be a medical missionary since I was 16. I knew in my heart. And when I got into medical school, it was basically God saying, you can get into medical school if you decide to serve me, and I've given you this opportunity. And when I got into ophthalmology residency, God was saying, I let you get into this residency if you decide to use those skills to serve me. And when I got into my cornea fellowship, it was the same thing. You're going to use these skills to serve me someday in the mission field. And so it was very clear in my mind that God was opening all of these doors so that ultimately I could serve Him. And I think if I had run the other direction and said, I want to live my conventional life in the U.S., and I want to make the money that an ophthalmologist can make, married to a dentist who could make the money a dentist could make in the U.S., I know that would have been the wrong decision, and we would not be as fulfilled as how we feel now. Yeah, although because I'm so involved in the medical side, I don't get the joy of seeing, the fruits of the labor many times. But, we do have a chaplain here at our eye hospital. And, even yesterday in our morning devotion, after our morning devotion, he was making an announcement about 2 individuals who gave their life to Christ recently after our outreach event in that community. And he made a particular comment that was interesting. He said, yes, in that area, the people have been very stubborn. But after this outreach event, their hearts were softened when they saw the good that our eye hospital was doing. And so I think even though I don't often get to hear of, all of the fruits and all of the fruits of the labor, I know that there's a lot going on after we've gone through an area, after we've done screenings or outreach events. There have been people giving their lives to Christ. There are occasionally through the year, combined with our iCamp, we'll do a combined evangelistic series. And during those times, you can actually see many people getting baptized and giving their lives to Christ. So it's pretty amazing. It gives a break from just the medical aspect of it to hear those stories.
On this program, Mission 360, and in the accompanying magazine, Mission 360, you'll notice that we talk about a wide variety of mission methods, models, ways of doing things. Because we believe that there's not just one way of doing mission, that God has called a variety of people to use a variety of methods, all based, of course, on the example of Jesus. In fact, the New Testament clearly teaches that Christians are given what are called spiritual gifts. And these are so important that the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 1, About spiritual gifts, I don't want you to be ignorant. And there's several places in the New Testament where different spiritual gifts are talked about. For example, in this very chapter, he talks about how God has given some people the gift of being prophets, some teachers, some miracle workers, some administration, a variety of different gifts to serve the church for mission. That's always the purpose of spiritual gifts, to enhance mission. Every follower of Jesus is given at least one spiritual gift. It may at some stage be taken away and replaced with something else, but God equips His church for mission through spiritual gifts. And that means that you may not be a preacher, but that's okay. You'll be given some other gift. You may have the gift of hospitality, of helps. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Mission 360. It's always a pleasure to talk about the mission of the Adventist Church around the world, and it's so encouraging to see many people's lives being blessed. If you want to find out more about Adventist Mission, please visit our website at adventistmission.org. And thank you so much for your continuing prayers and financial support for mission. I hope you can join me next time right here on Mission 360.